Some say it's all about 1925 and beyond. The podcast. KC 100 year celebration with Pete A. Kennedy and Marlon A. Kennedy.
Welcome. It's another episode of the 1925 and Beyond podcast, focused on Kingston College 100 year celebration. And we have a special guest like every other sessions today. I am Pete A. Kennedy, one of your hosts. I'm here with big brother Marlon A. Kennedy. I went to Kingston College between the years of 1992 to 1995. Played Coles 93, 94. That's football. 194 and then played Manning Cup 95, but it's not about us, it's about our guests, so let's keep it moving. Big brother, Marlon A. Kennedy, talk to them.
All right, thank you, Pete. Welcome everybody again to another episode of 1925 and Beyond. As Pete said, I'm the co-host, also went to Kingston College from 1986 to 1993, and I played cricket for the years that I was there at all levels and captain at all levels as well. It is indeed a pleasure to have another distinguished guest with us today. Again, another renowned old boy. You know, when we speak to a lot of the old boys, there are quite a few names that are thrown at us in terms of make sure you get this man, make sure you get this man, contact this man. And our guest today is none other than Mr. Maurice Weir, and he's one of such persons that we were strongly encouraged to have as one of our guests. So Maurice, good day and welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Morning, Pete. Morning, Marlon. How are you both doing?
Welcome.
We're good. Thank you for joining us, Maurice. So in true fashion with all our guests, Maurice, we always ask them to, tell us their story. And we ask them to start with, life before KC, where you grew up, your siblings, all of that sort of thing. So, and then we transition into Kingston College.
All right. That's good. All right. I went to primary school at John Mills. This is in the 65, 66, 67 era. And my first connection with Kingston College was my father was one that wanted me to read the editorial page on the way to school as he was taking us to school in the morning. But when we finished reading the editorial page, I would then turn to the sports page of the Gleaner. And what always fascinated me was every day I seemed to see these two letters, K and C. So I started to form the impression that KC won everything. Come time in 68 to start to make a choice for the common entrance, as it was called then, my choice was simple. KC and the oftentimes also mentioned JC. Mm-hmm. I took the common entrance, and as God would have it, I passed for Kingston College. Now, I had two siblings, two brothers. One went to Excelsior, and one went to Meadowbrook. So there was no loyalty in the household for me to break new ground to go to KC. There might have been a bit of jealousy even. So my journey at KC started. When the common entrance results came out, and everybody is scrambling to look for your name. It was published in the Gleaner back in those days.
Yep.
Couldn't find my name. But strangely enough, I found a Maurice Watson and a Basil Weir. When it turned out, it was actually Maurice Weir and Basil Watson. So I don't have to tell you who Basil Watson is. So on my first day at school in September of 1969, I had to seek out who was this Basil Watson. Now, Basil Watson and I have remained friends ever since. And Basil has gone on, as you all know, to great things. So I started KC in 1969 in 1A. Now, in those days, we had some good teachers, excellent teachers. I mean,
Before you go any further, Maurice, because having spoken to other old boys, we understand how they place the students. So 1A was like the bright boy, then where they do well at common entrance.
Yes.
And they also did, I believe, French and Latin.
Yeah.
Well, no Latin in 69, but we did French.
You did French.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So you start off in theory, you start off as a nerd.
No. In theory, I start off as a bright boy.
That's right. Which is right.
But KC is so competitive, that by the time we get to the second term, you get some bright boys coming in. Mm-hmm. Boys like Patrick Dallas and Clinton Watson join us in 1A.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I'll never forget about my first farm year was Foggy Burrows, the late Foggy Burrows. Said to us maybe in about the October, this is in our second month at KC. Gentlemen, infinite our vast domain, everlasting shall be our reign. Now, those words have stayed with me since I went to KC 56 years ago. I am one of those who was so cultured by the Kingston College Old Boy Fraternity that we are and will continue to be for all times the greatest high school in Jamaica and the region, and indeed the world. Our experiences back in those days was one of nostalgia. It was one of feeling superior to your friends who you had at primary school who went off to the Woolmers and Calabars and JC. We just felt that we were superior in so many ways. You know, oftentimes we have been accused of being bossy.
And cult-like.
Yes. And there's a reason for this. There is a reason for this. You find yourself forming groups, forming alliances that last a lifetime. Most of my best friends I have had for 50 odd years because we all went to school together. Peter Thompson, Patrick Dallas, Clinton Watson. You know, the list goes on, and we share a lot of things.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. Yesterday, I met up with someone whom I have not seen for 30 odd years, and it was as if we didn't see each other from last week. Juta.
Yeah.
You know, there is this cult-like, if they want to call it, but that is the nature of KC.
Mm-hmm.
My days at KC, I started in 69 and I haven't left. I tried my hand at some Colts cricket. We didn't have Pepsi cricket indoors, or junior cricket. We had Colts and Sunlight. I wasn't too bad. Didn't make the team, but I was a water boy. Wanted to go on to Sunlight, but at that time, Mikey Holding and Whittingham were still in school, and those were the opening bowlers for KC. And in another few years, those would have been the opening bowlers for Jamaica. And we all know where Mikey ended up.
Mm-hmm.
My father and mother insisted that, well, you can't go to KC and not find a sport. Back in John Mills' days, I thought myself good at track and field. So I said, all right, let me try this track and field. But there was one Maurice Beecher and there was one Bally Reed in my class 3 year. So that didn't really go well either. I found myself cheering. I found myself enjoying watching my school win. I remember as a little first farmer, cricket was my first love at that time. And I remember in 1970 going to Sabina Park to see KC play Woolmers in the Sunlight final. And getting up the Saturday morning early to go and see the completion of that game. We always seemed able to just win. We progressed through school and under the tutelage of people like Mrs. Urquhart, my beloved English teacher from first form. Still love her, Beryl Urquhart. I think most of us were in love with our teachers of the female version at that time.
We heard those stories, Maurice. We heard those stories.
Yes.
They were impressionable. Helen Douglas.
Man.
Boy. But you see, those were the days when teachers stayed at the school for a long, long time. They were not only your teachers, but they became your guiding force, your motivator.
And your parent away from home.
And your parent away from home, exactly. And at the same time, by the time we got to North Street in 71, you would see people like a Dickie Coke, an Audley Hewitt, a Teddy McCook. And you would say, what do those people teach? Because you saw them every day walking the school compound. And you wondered what subjects they taught because they never seemed to teach. But as you got older, you realized these were the old boys. These were the boys who kept KC going in addition to the teaching staff, the academic staff, the ancillary staff.
So,
These
Mr.
were the
Weir,
guys. This was the engine behind the
not to
school.
cut you, not to cut you, but I live in Florida and I'm a part of the South Florida Casey Old Boy Association.
The
And
Hewitt's domain.
Yes, Audley has been there. But I just want to repeat something you said to make sure that the audience heard this very clear. You're saying in 1971, when you transitioned to North Street, our good friend Audley Hewitt, as a KC old boy, was walking the trenches in 1971. And today, in 2025, he is still doing the very same thing.
Absolutely.
Just want to get that
People
clear.
like Audley don't leave, you know.
Him don't leave.
Don't
Him
leave.
don't leave.
And that is a motivating force for a lot of us young old boys.
Yes, I agree. I am one.
And note what I said, young old boys, because
I hear you, man. We hear you. I was going to contest that part, Maurice, but I'll make you go on with it.
and you know, that is how we were cultured.
Yeah.
That is how we were cultured. How are the areas? People like that just stayed and they did what they had to do to ensure that Errol Jigs Ennis, to ensure that you achieved your best. You would have been the best at whatever path you decided to take. So we go through school, and as you go in the higher forms, and by the time you get to sixth form, you realize that ought to be your role when you leave school. Give back.
Yeah.
Bishop Gibson, when he was there, and we hear this from the old boys, only demanded from us that we give back to our school. And as a result of that, guys like you, guys like others are constantly there. You would have left KC, 30 years ago? But you feel
Yes.
you feel a desire, you feel a
Yes.
commitment.
Yes.
You feel a commitment to continue to stay, to give back, to help wherever you can.
Yep.
And it is the example that we all saw.
Yep.
By the time I got to sixth form, I figured that sport wasn't going to make it for me. But I did play a little hockey, made hockey as a matter of fact, as leading goal scorer 1 year. I played some hockey.
Hello, Maurice. You froze.
Okay, it's coming in. Sorry.
Yeah, man. So start off about hockey again, please.
Right. I played some hockey.
Mm-hmm.
I was leading goal scorer in 76.
Wow.
We leading goal scorer for KC, not for the league.
Yes, man, we understand. Yep.
But we did good because my parents felt that you not only supposed to deal with your books, but you're supposed to do some kind of sport. You need to be rounded.
Yes.
And leadership was one of the things I focused on. I became a member of the Sixth Form Association in Lower Six and moved up to being chairman of the Sixth Form Association in 75, 76. Represented KC and Jamaica at leadership training program in New York in 75.
Wow.
And it was an excellent experience. 20 odd countries represented, 6 weeks of leadership training. And we learned even more to understand what it meant to get an opportunity to go to a high school and to be able to come out near top of the class. It was.
Hello? You gone on mute, Maurice, and we lost video connection.
Sorry, guys, a call was coming in.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah, we realize.
What how far back do I need to go?
Where was the last thing?
So you talked about the transition.
The leadership training.
Yes, the leadership training. Yes.
Right. So at this training program in New York, you were exposed to what it meant to be a young leader. I mean, you understood the culture of other countries because, as I said, there were 20 or 30 countries present, and you understood what it was like to be a 17-year-old in Europe, in Africa, in Asia. And it opened your eyes. Now, back in those days, the then government led by Michael Manley was keen on having young leaders emerge. And he would meet once a month with the executive of the Sixth Form Association back in those days. He would allow us to express our ideas, make suggestions as to how we think we could make a difference in our country. And that is how we moved forward. So that was coming towards the end of my high school years, and it was fun. By this time, we would have had friendships spanning 6-7 years. And we all knew what it was like to enjoy KC. On the downside for me, my last year at school at KC, we lost boys championships. And I have a good friend till this day, Peter Thompson, would remind me that when they turned off the lights in the grandstand, they had to literally draw me out because I could not believe in my last boys champs we were going to lose. Now this is having won it for the past 6 years while I was there, and this was on our 14-year run.
Yeah.
But we have made amends. We have come back strong. We have worked hard, and we have achieved most of the objectives that we want to achieve.
So one more thing, that Maurice, because you know, one of the things we want to get from our panel as well is, you know, what were your most memorable moments at KC, and also who were the persons that stood out for you there, whether it is a fellow student, an old boy, parent, teacher, coach, you know, what was the most memorable moments and who stood out for you? Who left a lasting impression on you?
All right, there would be several memorable moments. The football triple in 75. The 6 years of champs victories. On the early days, having Bishop Gibson come to address us at assembly on a Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
Telling us about the history of the school. You know, I laud my school administration for having introduced to our first formers the history of Kingston College.
Mm-hmm.
I gather that some of the other schools are trying to emulate that particular aspect of their school life. But we at KC feel that we have a history that is deserving of imparting to our youngsters. You know, we didn't have that in our days. We actually had to live it. Yeah. But they are now able to teach this to our youngsters. And I think that is a good thing. The teachers that stand out for me, the late Wally Johnson, Helen Douglas, Mrs. Urquhart, Margaret Parchment. Teachers like that stood out. Now, they stood out not only for what they taught us, but for what they did. You would go to school in the morning and you would see them there before you were there. And chances are you would leave school in the afternoon and you would leave them there. People like Mr. Fortis. Mr. Fortis gave up being the headmaster when we were in third form. But he never left KC. He was always there, and he tried to expose us to the classicals, the music. So he would come to the classroom once or twice a week, and he would expose us to Beethoven, Brahms, and on the cultural side, Paul Robeson. So he would come with his gramophone and 2 speaker boxes set up, and this is how we were cultured. And this is what helped to develop us as youngsters. Don Taylor took over as headmaster. The Reverend Don Taylor, late Reverend Don Taylor, took over as headmaster. So he was our headmaster between third form and fifth form. Okay. He opened our eyes to our blackness being the beauty of this land. He was very proud of his blackness.
More
He would not
Afrocentric.
oftentimes express this. But that remember now in the late 60s, early 70s, that was the era of Black power.
Yes.
That was the
Yes.
era when we were gaining in our Black consciousness. And he helped to develop and promote this for us youngsters. Cedric Lazarus is another name that comes to mind. Cedric would have gone on to be our head boy in 6A. And Cedric is another one that hasn't left school. There are a group of us who walk the corridors as we saw people like Audley Hewitt and Nicky Cook, right, and Howard Harris. We have not given up on our school. So I will tell people I went to KC in 1969, but I haven't left. I did, for me, one of the pet peeves is to ensure that we not only go to KC, but we send our sons to KC.
Yep.
I remember when I got married in 1984, my prenup was simple. We have sons, they go to KC. If we have daughters, they go to St. Andrew. Because you have to get it right, St. Andrew.
Andrew. Yeah, St. Andrew.
My wife is a St. Andrew girl, Myrtle Robotham, as she was then. And my sons all came to KC. And this is something that I feel that it is the best way to treat your school. Send your blood.
Yes.
So that you don't have to draw 2 checks. When you draw a check, you draw a check for KC. Send your sons to KC. We have a few misguided old boys that figured that, it's a downtown school. But that is what made us good.
Yep.
Being a downtown school. And we are proud of it.
Yep.
So I left KC in 1976, went on to UW in 77. I had the misfortune of losing my father when I was waiting for A-level results in 76. Had my life planned, wanted to do law, but ended up having to get into run the family business. So after my father died, while I was waiting for A-level results, I had to take over the family business. Went to bed a boy and woke up a man because it was a sudden heart attack that he died.
Yeah.
So my plans changed. The upside of this is I went to Mona in 77. And in my final year at university, I met this nice young lady. I, at that time, looked like a rebel. I had a lot of hair, And it was a situation where she probably liked me, but she couldn't figure out how she would carry me to go meet her parents. with that mop on my head. Anyway, to be truthful, I had an agreement with my mother. If the PNP lost the election in 1980, I would get a haircut. And the PNP lost the election, so I did get a haircut.
Okay.
So that opened for me another door, because at this time now, she was willing to talk to me and to carry me home to meet her parents.
Yes.
After a few years, we got married, and the rest is history. So we have now been married 41 years.
So just to go back a bit there, Maurice, because you mentioned that you took over your father's business. What sort of business was that, and how was that? Because I see you were running that whilst you were at university.
Yes, I was.
Okay, tell us more.
We had a poultry farm. Poultry farm, and just this week when I was trying to make some calls to people to beg some eggs for KC for the week of champs, I reminded myself that I have been giving back to my school from I was in about 3rd farm, because George Thompson would come to me and say, Maurice, I know your father of the farm. Could you give us back in those days, it was 15 dozen eggs for the champs week. And I would go to daddy and him say, well, I can't give you all good eggs. I can give you some cracked ones. As you have a farm, you're going to have cracked eggs. But because you're going to be using them right away, it wasn't a problem. So I started doing that from 1971. I ran the farm, and I ran that until 1988 when it was devastated by Gilbert.
Okay.
And well, by that time I had gotten married, had 2 sons at that time, and I changed professions, let's call it. The farm having been so vulnerable, I decided that I would probably get into something else. And at that point, I got into construction, started to work with a company until I opened my own company in about 2 years after that. And I have been doing construction ever since.
Good.
That has been rewarding in many respects. And I don't mind saying the Douglas Forest building is one of the things that I have had a hand in. Douglas Tibel was the architect and I was the contractor, and I'm proud of that
So
because
I
it
want
was
to
one of the ways.
I want to
Right?
confirm something as well to Maurice, because you know you're a Kingstonian based on what you're saying. So where was your farm? Where was your
We
poultry farm?
up in the hills of Belvedere, and I have to
Okay,
still
Red Hills, up by Red
Red
Hills
Hills,
side.
right,
Okay.
right.
So that's where
The rules
that's where you
the
were
rules,
living as well?
yes, yes.
Okay.
The rules weren't as strict as they are nowadays. So back in those days, you were able to have a poultry farm, but then there weren't many people up there. There weren't many people. So you know, my life has had many fun times. I have oftentimes said to people, as a block of years, and I hope my wife will forgive me, but as a block of years, those 7 years spent at Kingston College will probably rank as the best 7 years of my life. I get emotional. Gentlemen, because I love KC. KC has done a lot for me. And I think it's only right that I do a lot for them. We're family, and this is how we were cultured. I mean, this is Champs Week, and this is special for all KC boys. But we're going to win this 100th one, because this 100th one is special.
Yes, it's one special.
So Maurice, on the point of your change of profession, because you know we have a lot of young Fortis watching this, and you see, we like to have an idea. What was it like when you got into construction? How has it been for you? And were there any major projects, national projects that you're a part of that you can say, yes, I had a hand in that? Because we want the young boys to know that, it's not only engineering and doctor and those sort of stuff. There's a lot of things that people can be successful at. So
boy, I tell you, the landscape has opened up tremendously, because I'll tell you this. If I had the opportunity that the youngsters have today, I would have probably been in sports management or something along those lines. Our youngsters need to know that you must never think that you are restricted to the traditional professions. You can get into construction without even being an engineer. Yep. I have gotten into construction and I've been in there now over 30 years, and I am not an engineer. Yep. But you bring your management skills to bear on that. And naturally, you will pick up a lot of things on the way. I would have worked on the Halfway Tree bus park, the transportation center. I would have worked on the Boulevard expansion project. I'd have worked on the cement company. I think that was the number 6 expansion of the cement company. And those projects look good on your resume when people know that you were a part of projects of that magnitude.
Yeah.
But the one that would have probably given me most pride is the building right behind you in your backdrop. Yep. The Douglas Forest building.
Douglas Forest building. Yep.
It has been a good 30-odd years in construction. Some of us don't get rich in construction, but you can look after your family. You can look after your family, and I would encourage our youngsters at KC. One of the things you get at KC, because of the rounded education we get, is that you are able to adapt to most
Yep.
situations.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned the Douglas Forest building, I would not want to finish this interview without mentioning our current headmaster,
Yes.
Dave
Yes.
Myrie.
Dave Myrie, yes.
Dave Myrie reminds me so much of our past headmasters who could give you some longevity in terms of their tenure and at the same time lift the school. You know, when Dave came to KC, one of the things that endeared me to him was we were walking the campus one day and he saw some youngsters and he was able to call to the youngsters by name. Now, that struck a chord in me. If he is able to talk to these youngsters by name, it means he is engaging his student population much in the same way that Doug's did.
Yep.
And I heard in the same way that Bishop Gibson did. Bishop Gibson apparently knew every boy in Kingston College by name. And I gather that Mr. Fortis knew most boys by name.
Yeah.
We have had headmasters that only know the bad ones and the good ones. And
Yes.
the large volume in between, nobody don't know them. I was considered probably a bad one, so they would have known me. I oftentimes found myself in the headmaster's office, but good
Or
days.
they might know the ones who are doing the extra curriculum, like the sports and stuff like
Yes,
that. Just and you know, just
like the
one of
Pete
those guys
Kennedy
that
and the
come to school.
Marlon Kennedy.
Yeah.
So,
All right,
but that is it, gentlemen. I mean, that's basically my life story.
Yeah.
I thank my fellow KC boys for the encouragement and the help over the years, because oftentimes, you know, what it means is that when we have a project at KC, it is my old boy friends that I call on for donations, for help, because it is our school and they are the ones that sometimes make me look good.
Yep.
So if the headmaster has a project, I'll take up the phone and I will call an old boy and I say, we need this. It is how the fraternity works. It is how the network works.
Yes.
You will find an old boy in every aspect of life.
Yes.
Every aspect.
Yes.
And if it even means that you go down a GP and you have to have somebody cover your back, you will find a old boy down there too.
Hey, them down there. So
yeah.
We were there this week, as a matter of fact, and had an opportunity when we were there. You know, we talked about going to KC and somebody walked up and said, yo, Fortis. I'm matter of fact, not even walk up in the middle. He's like, Fortis. So, you know, like
man, we're everywhere.
Over the world.
We're everywhere.
So Maurice, what we want to do, because we really appreciate your time and effort, and I know based on your current environment, you know, you're in the studio of your car, so you know, and you've taken time out to spend some time with us.
Fortis, thank you for 100 years of brilliance. Thank you for all the good times that you have made happen for so many of us. As we celebrate these 100 years, let's give the glory to God. He has guided us, He has protected us, and He has been at the forefront of all our successes. There have been times when we have had to step back, and those too have been cause for reflection, cause to let us understand that it is not always going to be a smooth ride. But if we continue to do what we do best, we will achieve what we set out to achieve. I would just like to thank our members of staff, our headmaster Dave Myrie, and all our teachers who have been relentless in their efforts at KC. Without you, we would simply not exist. Thank you all. Thank you for having helped us to achieve what we achieved. Youngsters, I only have one thing to tell you, and that was what was told to me. We have been given a special opportunity to attend Kingston College. Kingston College have made us into who we are. All I ask of you, don't forget when you leave. come back, give back. That's all I ask.
That's right.
One
That's
thing I
right.
can promise you, I will be at KC
Yes. Yes.
until my dying day. I will be at KC.
Yeah.
Wow.
Marlon, Pete, you guys doing a good job because it is through things like this that we will spread the word that we are indeed a Fortis family.
Yes.
I really appreciate what you do. Big up to what you do. Technology has eluded people like me and my generation. So I am not so much into the Instagram and thing, but I hear. So I
Yes,
know
yes,
when you
yes.
guys spread your wings, it
Yep.
go far and wide. So thank
Thank
you
you.
because you are part of our success story.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Man, and there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the infamous one and only Mr. Maurice Weir, the only interviewee so far on 1925 and beyond who had emotionally, I would say outburst, and we love it. Right, we talk about emotion. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a cult. This is a family. This is brotherhood. And when it touches you to the core, this is why we are called Fortis. Sir, I want to thank you for your time. We definitely appreciate it. And as you've heard it, since 1969, he has not left the streets or the corridors or even the fields of Kingston College. Since 1971, up until most recent, have been giving eggs during the champs time. And as you can see, he's dressed for the week and ready for the 100 sanitary victory that we hope KC bring forth in the champs this year. Man, Sir Mr. Weir, thank you. We appreciate it. You brought tears to my eyes. It's just that if you did quint one more time, you'd have seen me as I take up my napkin, I wipe my face. But I truly connected to that story, and I will forever talk about it. We appreciate you and thank you. Now, before we end any and every 1925 and beyond session, we have to end it with the greatest motto that came out of the greatest institution. And every old boy we ask to join us. And it goes like this. Fortis,
1, 2,
Cadere.
3, 4, this Cadere. How many years? Also CEDRE, no Potest. We in it. Well, yes. Rah, Casey. Yes, yes, yes.
I like it.
You blow me out of the waters with that one there, Maurice. Thank you.
Well, we used to have a bass version to that, you know. Oh, this CEDRE. How we yes. Also CEDRE, no Potest. How we in it. Well, I guess. Rah, Casey. Yes, yes, yes. Let's make it was good. Thanks. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Respect.
Oh man, that was the greatest. But we have to also add the Latin piece, that is the brave may fall but never yield. The English piece, I'm sorry.
Indeed.
The brave may fall but never yield.
Indeed.
Because trust me, it just sums it up. And we've heard story where men come out of offices. We've heard the story from Dr. Keys and Neville, where they stop the game and say, hey, the brave may fall but never yield, and Casey become victorious. Individuals become victorious. So thank you again, sir. We appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next 1925 and beyond. Cheers.
All right. Fortis.